Exciting times over here in the Dan Mars lab. D-76 needs no introduction, but I'm going to introduce you to a variation that you can make at home. You can save some money, and it has some really nice characteristics to it. It's called D-76H. Now, it needs some clarification though, so here we go. Quickly, here's D-76 by Kodak, $14.95. You can make a gallon. Ilford's ID11, you can make 5 liters for $22.69. Already pretty inexpensive and really great developers. Can't go wrong by just buying these and using them. However, in the film developing cookbook, Bill and Steve mention D-76H. They say it is a variation. It's easy to make at home, that it's actually their go-to as a benchmark for comparing to other developers. It has some really nice characteristics to it. It is more stable and consistent than D-76. It came from Grant Haist, so he mentions it here in this book. You can get this on eBay. It's a volume 1 and a volume 2. This is coming from his estate, sort of a Bible of black and white research, film photography research. D-76 is, right, the classic recipe is right here. Now this isn't how to make it, this is just the ingredients list. 2 grams of metol, 5 grams of hydroquinone, 2 grams of borax, 100 grams of sodium sulfite to make a liter. And then people have tinkered with these numbers a little bit, and then also played with these as amendments. And you get this gigantic list of all the different types of D-76, which I'll just say they're basically all the same. In terms of what image quality, yeah, there's some differences. For most people, they're all about the same. D-76H is on here, right? It's attributed to Haist. And notice it only has 3 ingredients. How nice is that? 2.5 grams of metol, 100 grams of sulfite, and 2 grams of borax. Right. So what Haist said was you can omit the hydroquinone and instead add 0.5 gram of either metol or borax, either one. Now, this really stands out to me because 1, hydroquinone is the most toxic thing in this list. 2 is I just took away 5 grams of something and now I'm replacing it with 0.5 gram of something else. And if it's borax, that'd be even better because borax is basically free. So that would mean that this is a safer, cheaper, easier to make variation of D-76. Okay. And hydroquinone is known to be a big variable in creating the roller coaster that is D-76, right? Over time, over usage, the activity, the contrast that it builds is quite variable. Sort of ironic for a standard developer. Right, and there's lots of ways, attempts to go around this. Right, maybe you add some additional buffering. Right, but this is just like omit the hydroquinone. Right, make it as make it fresh. Right, use it consistently. So I did a little cost analysis, see if I was saving money. Right, D-76, if I buy it from B&H, came out to about $4.30 a liter. Xtol came out to $3.56 a liter. This is including the distilled water. And ID11, $4.90. But if I come up here and I buy my own chemicals from B&H or Freestyle, and I make my own, including the water, it's $1.62 per liter. So, right, that's like 3 times cheaper than D-76 and ID11. Now, yeah, you have to it's a little more cost up front, right? If I send you over to B&H, you're for $61.80, you've got free shipping, and this is enough chemicals to make you 40 liters of D-76H, and these chemicals will last as long as you're interested in black and white photography. Right, so this is cheap. Now, is it actually the same as D-76, or am I going to have to add a bunch more time, right? Are these really almost equivalent to D-76? It's hard to believe. So for that, I got some FP4 control strips. Right, I processed this in D-76, D-76H with half a gram of metol, the extra half a gram of metol, and I also put it through D-76H, and I put the half a gram extra in the borax, because I wanted to see which one of those was better or different. Right, and then I'm going to take density readings on these 4 squares. The 4 squares represent sort of, this is like a standard thing to measure in quality control, is like your base plus fog. The LD, or low density, is basically your speed point. It's a little above classic speed point, but you can call it a speed point. The high density is 4 stops of exposure more, and you're looking for that to be about 0.8 density higher. And then you've got like a Dmax up top, right? So you have 4 different amounts of exposure to measure. So I did that, right? And here's what I got. The Dmin on all 3 was the same. The LD, that speed point, was basically the same with the one that was the D-76H that had the extra metol, came in just a little bit lower, right? The HD, about the same, but again, the metol was sort of lower, right? Dmax, all pretty close, but again, the metol. So what I'm seeing here is, I don't know that it was half a gram of metol or borax. I think that just adding half a gram of metol isn't quite doing it. Now, if you gave this extra time, could you make them equivalent? Yeah, probably. Just like if you give D23 extra time. But I am going to say that the extra bit of borax is the one that's much closer to being equivalent to D-76. And borax is cheaper than metol, so it's sort of a win there. So I'm going to hide that one. And now if we just compare these values, right, this is very promising. On the low end, sort of the speed end, right, looks very similar. On the high end, the density didn't build quite as much, but pretty darn close. And this was just one run. So would it be even closer if I ran it again? Now, say a little bit about my process. I was very careful to mix these the same. I mixed them at the same day and time. I waited a full day to process. I processed in an automatic processor, right, set the same way. I measured the temperature to make sure they were the same to within 1 degree Celsius. And I only ran the test once. So, but that's close enough for me to feel really good about giving this a darn good chance to be my developer. I also scanned all of the squares just to see if I could look at the grain, see if anything stands out. Now there are 4 samples here. 3 of them to my eye look the same. There is one that stands out as the finest, this bottom right one. Now that's Xtol underdeveloped. So yeah, it's going to be the finest. But these 3, I have a really hard time telling apart. The only one that maybe looks a little grainier is this one up here, which is the classic D-76. But I'm just going to go ahead and say right, in this context. And I looked at the other ones, both the high density and the low density, and I couldn't see a difference. So sort of, you know, grain wise, I don't see anything there either. So, you know, to conclude, D-76H is going to be what I'm going to use now as I continue to, right, develop at home HP5, XX, especially HP5. I'm going to use this as an undiluted one-shot, mostly pushing HP5. And right, I'm going to mix it on day 0. I'm going to let it sit for a full 24 hours. I'm going to use it on day 1. And I'm going to make a liter, and I'm going to use that whole liter, right? I'm going to develop 4 rolls at a time, and then be done with it. So then next time I'll make a liter, I'll sit it a day, and then I'll use it. So trying to create a lot of consistency. Yeah. Okay. Take care.